All right, thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm here to present SB 1219. This bill makes the act of impeding traffic and loitering in a public place with the intent to direct or solicit prostitution forms of disorderly conduct. SB 1219 is meant to address the increase in human trafficking while shielding our most vulnerable. With me here today to present SB 1219 my lead witnesses are Opal Singleton and Marjorie Saylor. Opal has years of experience dealing with human trafficking, and Marjorie is both a survivor of the sex traffic industry and human trafficking who now advocates on behalf of victims and survivors. Guys.
You will have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to share Desi's story with you. She was a beautiful Mexican-American trans woman who came to me seeking help while engaged in street prostitution. She wanted a way out and needed treatment for untreated HIV. Within her first 2 weeks in shelter, she was hospitalized 3 times after attempting suicide. She was struggling to accept her diagnosis, and every former support system had abandoned her. Even with the temporary housing, she left the shelter and went back home to San Francisco. She called me to thank me for everything I'd done for her and said goodbye. Desi took her life that day. I am Marjorie Saylor, and I am also a survivor of the sex industry and human trafficking. I, too, nearly lost my life to the sex industry twice, long before my work began in the space as an advocate in 2014. I've assisted thousands of survivors across the U.S. with emergency shelter. Over the last 11 years, I have also a long history as a program director of another nonprofit and as an educator in my community. Before making my career change recently to the DA's office in San Diego, I have seen nothing short of the grim realities of who benefits the most from legislation that allows no protections against perpetrators of abuse and systems of prostitution. I've assisted over 2,000 individuals here in California alone in the last 10 years. Over 65% of them were from vulnerable Black and brown communities. All reported abuse at the hands of buyers, including rape, rape combined with robbery, rape combined with beatings and robbery, stabbings, being thrown out of moving vehicles, being held hostage, and countless instances of strangulation and rape-style fantasies being played out. SB 357, in addition to increasing blatant physical abuse on the streets, also removed protections against perpetrators of abuse by decriminalizing the act of loitering for buyers as well as pimps. Before SB 357, pimps were laid up at home on a couch while their 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old victims were walking the streets with bloody feet. Now these pimps are liberated to standing on the street corners and keeping an even tighter grip on their victims without any repercussions. Pimps, buyers, and traffickers are the only ones who have benefited from SB 357.
Ma'am, time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next lead witness, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Opal Singleton. I'm the president and CEO of Million Kids. We're an organization that for 15 years now have been keeping kids safe from predators. SB 357 has had many unintended consequences. One of those is a massive increase in the amount of human trafficking activity taking place in California. This is a serious public safety issue, and we need to address it. I have personally witnessed after SB 357 and have heard from many city leaders and mayors about how pimps, gangs, cartels are bringing van loads of girls in from Las Vegas and Phoenix and across the USA to conduct commercial sexual services in our communities. Many of our neighborhoods have lines of cars cruising up and down the streets, stopping in the middle of the road to negotiate a sexual transaction. In San Diego, LA, and Oakland, the neighborhoods are no longer safe for children, families, or elderly. There are used condoms, needles, and cigarettes in yards and driveways and streets where there were once children that were playing. 2 schools in the Oakland area have been forced to close because it is no longer safe for parents to walk their kids to school, drop them off. Parents have to call the police and ask for an escort to have their child brought from school through the line of sex sellers. Parents are afraid to get out of their car to get their kids because of threats from pimps. I am especially concerned about the homeless. A homeless woman is a trafficked woman. A homeless teenager is a trafficked teenager, regardless of gender or sexual orientation. I can't imagine that any of you have constituents that would have their 13-year-old girl step out of their front room and be greeted by a pimp trying to get her in the life, or have your 5-year-old granddaughter escorted from kindergarten through a line of sex workers just to get to the car.
Ma'am.
But it is happening.
Thank you.
I am asking to approve SB 1219.
Thank you. For those of you that would like to make a Me Too comment, please state your name, your organization, and that you support. And again, limit your comments to that you support.
Aaron Friday, Protect Kids California, Our Duty, Support.
Thank you.
Helen Taylor with the anti-trafficking organisation Exodus Cry, standing with survivors in support.
Madison McQueen, also with Exodus Cry and San Francisco resident, strong support.
Cynthia Cravens, former candidate for California State Senate District 11, longtime Democrat, very much in support of this.
Yvette Corcoran, longtime resident of San Francisco, mother, nurse, very much in support of this bill.
Holly Jackson, former teenage runaway, in support.
Peggy Delgado Fava, Bridge Network. We provide services for CSEC victims. Thank you. Support.
Ivy Fitzpatrick, California DAs Association, Riverside County District Attorney's Office, in support.
Greg Burt with the California Family Council, in support.
Rochelle Connor, on behalf of Concerned Women for America, strong support.
Good morning, Lieutenant Julio De Leon of Riverside County Sheriff's Office, in support.
Dylan Lasovsky, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, in support.
Hi, Randy Perry with Aaron Reed and Associates on behalf of PORAC and the San Francisco Police Officers Association, in support.
Thank you. Do we have any other support witnesses, or Me Too's, I should say? Seeing none, can we move on to opposition lead witnesses? Each of you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Becca Kramer-Mauder on behalf of ACLU California Action in respectful opposition. The Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking's client services data does not support the claim that SB 357 has increased rates of human trafficking or street-based sex work. In fact, in LA County, they have seen a decrease in hotline and emergency response calls since 2021. And to the extent that there may be an increase in street-based sex trade, many things could contribute to this potential rise, including rising housing costs, the reduction of COVID-related financial relief programs, and shifting labor laws. Sex workers are often parents working to support their children, and rates of survival sex work would be greatly reduced by addressing the housing crisis and building a stronger social safety network. Arresting sex workers for loitering does not help anyone. It only hides people from view and makes all sex workers, including those who are trafficked, more vulnerable to violence and abuse. CAST recently conducted a statewide survey of practitioners who serve people with lived experience of human trafficking, sexual violence, and domestic violence. And of their respondents, the overwhelming majority had seen clients who had been previously arrested or detained, and reported that more than half of them reported that being arrested or detained had made survivors more vulnerable to victimization, and 1/3 reported that their clients had been victimized by law enforcement. Additionally, laws aimed at criminalizing purchasers of sex create more dangerous working conditions for sex workers and people who are trafficked. Similar laws in other countries have pushed sex workers to operate under riskier conditions with harmful implications for their health, including a decrease in condom use and increased drug and alcohol use, depression and suicidal thoughts, and violence against sex workers. Results like these, including the harmful impact on victims of sex trafficking, have led Amnesty International to recommend that some of these laws in other countries be repealed. Increasing criminal...
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Fatima Malika Shabazz, here on behalf of Decrim Sex Work California. We wrote SB 357. Admittedly, yes, there is a problem with sex trafficking. We know this. This bill, however, is bad policy. This bill does not help anyone. What it does is increases the ability for sex workers to be harmed. Statistics show that there's not maybe 2 out of 3, maybe 4 people who actually get helped or who are sex trafficked and they get help when they're arrested. But being arrested is a traumatic incident. It is violent. It is terrible to people. It puts them at help. It puts them at risk, in and out. Right. It makes this job, which is already a very, very dangerous job, it puts these people in more vulnerable positions. Bills like this are bad policy and they kill people. Outright, they kill people. You know, be they a person who is sex trafficked or just your average run-of-the-mill street worker who is just trying to take care of their families, pay bills, just like everyone else in this room. You know, this bill is bad policy. It kills people. The city of Los Angeles, Oakland, statistics show that SB 357 did not increase street-based sex working. It didn't, right? If anything, it did. AB 205 did. But this bill will not, I guarantee you, it will not help anyone being sex trafficked. I really have a whole lot of empathy and sympathy for the people who go through that, and there is a problem. It needs to be resolved. But this bill is not the way to do it. This bill is only going to get people hurt. It's only going to get people killed. That's going to be the bottom line to that. People will get hurt. People will get killed, and no one will be helped. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. We will move on to opposition Me Too's. Please state your name, your organization, and that you oppose this bill.
Good morning. Glenn Backus for Smart Justice California in opposition.
Leslie Caldwell Houston for the California Public Defenders Association and the San Francisco Public Defender's Office in opposition.
Barbara Chavez with the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights strongly oppose.
Good morning, Tatiana Lewis with the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights in strong opposition. Thank you.
Craig Polster on behalf of Equality California in opposition. Also oppose SWAP LA, the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, Free Speech Coalition, and the Center on Reproductive Rights and Justice.
Kathy Mossberg on behalf of APLA Health and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation, both opposed.
Symphony Barbie on behalf of Planned Parenthood Affiliates of California in opposition.
Jeronimo Aguilar here on behalf of Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. All of us are not in opposition. Thank you.
Sharita Moore on behalf of California Attorneys for Criminal Justice in opposition.
Thank you. Do we have any other opposition witnesses? Seeing none, we will move the conversation to members of the committee. Senator Wiener.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator, for your presentation today. I think this probably surprises no one. I'm not going to be supporting this bill today. As the author of SB 357, we introduced that bill and advanced it, and the legislature passed it for a very specific reason. This is not the loitering law that SB 357 repealed was not your typical criminal law that if you do X, that is a crime and you are accountable for that crime. This is literally one of the more pernicious kinds of criminal laws that if you're simply standing around dressed in a certain way, your hair is in a certain way, your makeup's in a certain way, if an officer subjectively thinks that's someone who I think is engaging in sex work, they can arrest you. I find that kind of crime to be offensive, and that's why we repealed it. And I understand not everyone agrees with me, and I respect that, but that's my perspective. I do want to, however, just say some of the narrative around SB 357 is just blatantly false. And I say this as someone who has been around this and involved with it for a few years now. I will say that, just to give you some examples, even before this law went into effect, there were police who were telling their communities there's nothing we can do because of SB 357 before it was even in effect, while the loitering law was still on the books. That happened in my own city, where a particular captain at Mission Station, because we have some parts of the mission that are very impacted by street prostitution, and those neighbors should not have to deal with what they have to with what they are often dealing with, and the city has employed various strategies to address it, but it's been going on for decades. For decades, you can find Chronicle articles from the 1990s talking about the problems with street prostitution in this part of the mission, and yet the captain announced to neighbors it's because SB 357, which was not even in effect yet, because that's why this is happening, even though it was happening in the 1990s. It was happening before the loitering crime was created. It was happening during the decades that crime was on the books, and it continues. So it was also the case that San Francisco stopped enforcing that loitering law years ago. And yet you have police misleading, frankly, this one captain, members of the public, that this law that we stopped enforcing years ago, that its repeal of the law we didn't even enforce or utilize, that's why this is happening. It was made up. We also saw a particularly outrageous example in the city of San Diego. After SB 357 was in effect, so the loitering law was off the books, the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego, the DA, the state, federal, they did a big joint operation to address the despicable crime of human trafficking. They did a big operation. They arrested, I don't remember the exact number, it was like 40 or 50 traffickers they arrested. And they rescued, I believe, something like 15 or 20 young women who were being trafficked. They did all of that even though the loitering law had been repealed. They did a big celebratory press conference, as they should have, by arresting these human traffickers and rescuing these young women. And they celebrated this really important thing that they did. And then I can't remember, I think it was the police chief and maybe the DA too got up and said, by the way, SB 357 has handcuffed us and eliminated our ability to deal with human trafficking, as they were announcing the arrest of dozens of traffickers. So I understand there's a lot of politics around this issue, and we have a long-standing problem that has existed since the beginning of problem issue. Some people view it that way, some people don't. An issue that has been around from the beginning of the human species. And people get frustrated by that. And there are people who abuse other people and should be held accountable. And people who are trafficking other people should be harshly punished. And there's always this desire, let's find a scapegoat and let's blame the legislature. No, law enforcement has the tools that they need to arrest traffickers, to rescue trafficking victims, and to enforce the law. You don't need a vague loitering law that leads to absolutely arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement. So I don't support this bill.
Thank you. Senator, seeing no other comments, would you like to close?
Yeah. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. That's what it is. And I think we are all... we've heard over and over about the ills of slavery. In 2020 alone, 300,000 victims of human trafficking were identified in the U.S. Women and girls were found to be particularly vulnerable. African American women are disproportionately at higher risk, with many women reporting sexual abuse, beatings, food, and sleep deprivation, isolation from the outside world. Research from the U.S. State Department and a large body of scientific research has found a close connection between the prostitution and human trafficking. Studies have shown that the decriminalization of prostitution has not led to better safeguards for victims of human trafficking, and that recently there has been an explosion of underage population. And this is because of the confluence of our dynamics here in California today. We have a lot of people coming into our country, and a lot of them are underage people. And those people are being exploited. And they're not being exploited by the person down the street that decided that they were going to be a pimp. These are being exploited by very sophisticated criminal enterprises. What this law is supposed to do is reel back what we've seen as the, and I don't know if it's not unintentional consequences, but the consequences of the bill from last year. And I understand the intent of not bothering people that want to be engaged in this and that the people are making money. This bill is to try to help victims. It's focused on the victims and the ability of our law enforcement community to be able to help get those victims out of the circumstances that they're in safely. And I mean safely. Because if we don't do that, if we don't allow them that safe exit from this world, they'll be trapped in it forever. And the cycle that they are in will continue with their families. Folks, we can't stand by and watch the consequences of a bill. And that's what, you know, for me, I'm all for when a bill passes, okay, let's see how it works. But this particular bill, when you start seeing how it's working and what the negative effects are, you better darn well get out there ahead of it. Well, you're not ahead of it anymore, but get out there and do something. You can't wait for longitudinal studies of 5 years to determine what kind of damage and how many people it got killed. You're talking about people getting killed. You're talking about kids getting exploited and ruining their lives for the rest of their lives. Those are the people that need to be helped out. This law has not enabled the law enforcement in general to be able to even help those people. So the people that actually study this have been out there, they've seen it, they've actually walked those streets, they've seen the increase since this bill passed. And that's why they are imploring us to do something. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to do something. Do something for the victims, the people that don't want to be trapped in that world, the people who don't want to be exploited anymore. And so that's what this bill is focused on. That is what it's trying to do. There are sections of this bill that talk about the people that make the most money in this, the people at the top. Just like the corporations I hear about, a lot of people complain. The corporation, the people at the top are making all the money and the poor people at the bottom don't get anything. This is no different. But here we're talking about people dying that don't want to be in this world. And we're not doing anything for them. Because we're afraid of doing something. We're afraid of inconveniencing the people that do want. And the last thing is, being a pimp, being a John, and prostitution is currently illegal. Supporting the illegal activities and saying that we shouldn't be helping victims because those people will be inconvenienced is a horrible argument. So this bill, I wish it would pass, but I know it's not going to. And the only person that's going to be able to make the motion is me. And so I'm going to do that. I will make the motion for this bill.
You can't technically.
As the author and a member of this committee, when there's only 2 people here.
You can't make
Not
a
on
motion
your
on
own
your
bill.
own bill.
Okay. Then I would leave it up to my board members here to at least have the decency to have a motion on this bill so we can take a vote and we can put it on the record.
All right, thank you. Any members of the committee who are here? All right, seeing no motion.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
We have 2 members out, so there's a roll call that's still open. We can wait. We will move on to our next bill.